When I first saw it, I thought that this was a US-made, very advanced next-generation fighter, and in fact that this would explain all the UFO.
Under the smoke of a Florida wildfire, a perfect silver sphere was found, smooth, seamless, and cold, as if forged somewhere beyond Earth. For 50 years, no one knew where it went, until now, because in 2025, Bob Lazar opened a declassified Cold War file that described something identical, same dimensions, same pulse, same rhythm. And if he's right, the Betz Sphere wasn't alien at all, it was ours, and that's what makes it terrifying. The fire and the silver eye. The Betz discovery took place on Fort George Island, near Jacksonville, Florida. After a minor fire swept through their property, Antoinette and Jerry Betz, along with their son Terry, inspected the damage. Scattered among the debris was a smooth metal sphere, approximately 8 inches in diameter. It was unusually heavy for its size, completely seamless, and faintly stamped with a small triangular marking. Unlike any common industrial object, it lacked bolts, seams, or openings. The family assumed it was a piece of old equipment or a part from a nearby ship, but the unusual density and balance suggested otherwise. The Betz family lived in a large stone mansion, locally known as the castle. They placed the sphere by a window, thinking little of it at first, but within days, they began noticing unusual behavior. The sphere emitted faint vibrations at random intervals, sometimes producing a soft ringing tone that seemed mechanical in nature. When sunlight struck its surface, it warmed rapidly and maintained that heat long after being moved indoor. Its properties didn't match any typical metal behavior observed at the time. Initial assumptions that it was a decorative or industrial object were quickly dismissed when simple physical tests revealed something far stranger. The family observed that when the sphere was rolled across the floor, it didn't behave like a normal object. It would slow, stop, change direction, and often roll back toward the person who had set it in motion. Tests performed on a glass table confirmed that it resisted rolling off edges and sometimes moved against inclines. Observers compared its behavior to an intelligent machine adjusting to its environment. While the family had no scientific explanation, the consistency of its reactions was undeniable. The object responded differently depending on the surrounding conditions: light, heat, and especially sound. Later measurements revealed a rhythmic pulsing sound inside the sphere, repeating approximately once every 47 seconds. At the time, this detail seemed meaningless. Decades later, it would become the key link between the Betz mystery and classified US Navy research into sonic resonance spheres built for experimental navigation. The note that woke the metal. The sphere's interaction with sound became the first phenomenon documented beyond the Betz family's own observations. During one afternoon, Terry Betz and a friend were playing guitar when they noticed that certain musical notes triggered vibrations from the sphere. Low-frequency sounds made it hum audibly, and high-pitched tones caused it to resonate. The effect was so distinct that when they stopped playing, the sphere would fall silent. When they resumed, it responded again. Experiments showed that the reaction wasn't random, it was frequency-specific. The object seemed to convert acoustic energy into motion or vibration. In subsequent tests, the family discovered magnetic properties as well. A paperclip or small metallic object would cling weakly to its surface, and after prolonged movement, that magnetic field strengthened temporarily. The combination of heat retention, magnetic variation, and sound response made the sphere unlike anything known in civilian technology at the time. The Betz family speculated that it might be solar-powered, as the hum intensified under sunlight and faded when left in darkness. However, no energy source, seams, or power systems could be found. It appeared completely sealed, yet responsive to the environment around it. The case gained traction when local journalists visited the Betz home to document the sphere firsthand. One such reporter from the Jacksonville Journal described witnessing the sphere move on its own across the floor and change direction without being touched. These accounts transformed a local curiosity into an international story almost overnight. Media networks and scientific institutions demanded access to the object. The family began receiving offers from researchers, collectors, and eventually the military. For a household that had never sought public attention, the sudden surge of scrutiny was overwhelming. Within weeks, the US Navy formally requested permission to examine the sphere under controlled laboratory conditions. At that time, the Betz family could not have imagined that their discovery would soon draw the attention of classified defense projects. What they saw as a metallic oddity had already triggered alarms within a system familiar with such behavior. Objects designed to convert sound into mechanical power. The pattern was recognizable to a very specific group of scientists. Decades later, their files would prove it. Echoes inside the castle. Once the Jacksonville Journal published its first report on the metallic sphere, curiosity transformed into chaos. What began as a local feature about an odd household discovery soon spread through wire services and national newspapers. Within days, the Betz home on Fort George Island became a revolving door for reporters, photographers, and amateur investigators hoping to see the mysterious object for themselves. For a quiet family unaccustomed to public attention, the sudden exposure was overwhelming. Phone calls arrived at all hours. Letters came from scientists, hobbyists, and self-proclaimed experts. Everyone had a theory: meteorite, satellite component, alien probe, but no one could explain the behaviors that witnesses claimed to observe. Those who visited the castle described scenes that blurred the line between physics demonstration and seance. When the sphere was rolled across the floor, it sometimes changed direction, as if guided by an unseen hand. When sunlight struck it, a faint hum resonated through the wall, low enough to feel more than hear. The family's large masonry home amplified every vibration, making the sphere's reaction to ambient sound even more dramatic. Antoinette Betz told one interviewer that the object seemed alive, while her son Terry compared its motion to a living creature reacting to attention. Whether those observations were psychological or physical was never determined, but the impression they left on visitors was unmistakable. Under the Navy's light, the sphere was transferred to Mayport Naval Station for testing in April 1974. Navy engineers conducted spectrographic and radiographic analyses to determine its composition and internal structure. The results, later summarized in press interviews, confirmed that the object was composed of stainless steel, specifically grade 431, a high-strength alloy commonly used in aerospace and marine applications. It measured just over 8 inches in diameter and weighed about 22 pounds. No seams or openings were detected, and initial X-rays revealed nothing definitive inside due to the metal's density and the equipment's limitations. Magnetic testing produced ambiguous results. The sphere exhibited localized magnetic regions, 4 poles of unequal strength, rather than the standard north-south alignment found in ordinary magnets. Some observers speculated that this irregular field explained its tendency to roll unpredictably, especially on uneven surfaces or under varying light and heat. The Navy found no signs of radioactivity or explosive material and concluded that the sphere posed no danger. However, they could not explain its unusual balance and acoustic response. When struck with a hammer, it emitted a clear ringing tone and continued to vibrate longer than expected for solid steel. These properties intrigued the engineers but did not suggest anything beyond the range of advanced metallurgy. The Betz family received the sphere back roughly 2 weeks later, along with assurances that it was not a weapon, satellite fragment, or government device. Publicly, the Navy dismissed the extraterrestrial rumors as sensationalism. Privately, they left several lines in their report blank, noting that further testing with higher intensity X-ray systems may yield additional data. Whether such tests were ever performed remains unknown. What was clear was that the object defied easy classification: not alien, not radioactive, not entirely ordinary. When the family brought it home, it behaved just as before, humming in sunlight, vibrating to music, and rolling unpredictably across the floor. The Navy's involvement had not solved the mystery. It had only deepened it. By now, the sphere had transcended the Betz family's control and entered the realm of speculation, rumor, and secrecy that would define the case for decades. The scientist without a record. After the Navy released the sphere back to the family, the investigation entered a more uncertain phase. Independent scientists began contacting the Betz household, each eager to examine what the Navy could not explain. Among them was a nuclear physicist named Dr. Carl Willis, affiliated at the time with the Omega-1 Institute, a research group reportedly based in New Mexico. Willis arrived at Fort George Island in late April 1974 to conduct a detailed analysis. According to contemporary news accounts, he performed a series of non-invasive tests measuring the sphere's density, magnetism, and response to ultraviolet light. What happened during those sessions remains unclear. The Betz family later recalled that after several hours of testing, Dr. Willis appeared unsettled. He allegedly told them the object's energy readings were inconsistent with any known metallic compound, warning that they should treat it with caution. Shortly after his visit, Willis could no longer be reached. When journalists attempted to contact the Omega-1 Institute, they found no public listing, no staff directory, and no record of its existence in any scientific registry. Whether the organization ever operated under that name is still disputed, and to this day, no documentation confirming Dr. Willis's professional background has surfaced. The episode marked the first time the Betz family began to suspect that their discovery might be connected to something larger than a single anomaly. They reported seeing unfamiliar vehicles parked near their property and hearing faint radio interference on home telephones. While such claims were never verified, the sense of being watched became part of the lore surrounding the case. What is documented, however, is that the sphere's activity seemed to increase during this period. Family members described stronger vibrations, more pronounced hums, and the re-emergence of that 47-second rhythm, so subtle that it could only be detected through sensitive recording equipment. Element 140. The next major examination came from Dr. James Albert Hardin, a mechanical engineering professor from Louisiana who had followed the case through the press. Hardin approached the Betz family with academic caution, promising a rigorous structural and materials analysis. His findings, if accurate, remain among the most controversial claims ever made about the object. Using X-ray density calculations and magnetic field modeling, Hardin concluded that the sphere's outer shell was composed of multiple layers of stainless steel of varying densities, surrounding an internal cavity roughly the size of a small apple. Within that cavity, he claimed, were 3 smaller metallic orbs attached by ultrafine filaments, an arrangement that no known manufacturing process could have produced without visible seams or access points. Hardin went further, stating that the internal material appeared to possess an atomic number around 140, a figure exceeding the heaviest element ever confirmed by modern chemistry. For context, the current periodic table ends at element 118, oganesson. Anything beyond that exists only fleetingly in particle accelerators. If Hardin's measurement were correct, the sphere contained a synthetic or extraterrestrial element unknown to science. He also claimed to have detected minor but persistent levels of radiation emanating from its core, levels far below danger thresholds, but high enough to suggest nuclear instability. None of these extraordinary findings were ever verified by independent laboratories, and subsequent attempts to reproduce his data failed. Nevertheless, Hardin's report changed the tone of the entire discussion. The narrative shifted from mechanical oddity to potentially revolutionary artifact. Some scientists dismissed the data as miscalculation or equipment error, but others were intrigued by the precision of the measurements and the absence of any clear fabrication marks. Hardin theorized that the object might represent a compact energy storage device or an early attempt at anti-gravitic containment, citing parallels with theoretical propulsion systems described in classified aerospace research of the same era, The Briefcase and The Voices. By the summer of 1974, the Betz family's quiet life had collapsed under the weight of attention. Newspapers from across the United States published photographs of the gleaming orb resting in the family's living room. Radio shows speculated that the government had already classified the object, while tabloid headlines described it as proof of alien visitation. In that climate of obsession, the family began receiving visitors whose intentions were far less clear. Some arrived claiming to represent research institutes or aerospace firms. Others refused to identify themselves at all. One evening, a group of 3 men visited the castle without prior notice. They carried documents printed on unmarked letterhead and a briefcase containing an offer of $750,000 in cash, the equivalent of several million today. The condition was simple: immediate transfer of the sphere, no questions, and no public disclosure. Jerry Betz refused the offer, insisting the object belonged to the family and would remain in their possession until science could properly identify it. The men left without argument, but warned that interest in the object extended beyond curiosity. The Betz family never discovered who they were. In the weeks that followed, the tone of incoming communication changed. Phone calls arrived late at night with no audible voice on the other end. Vehicles were seen idling near the entrance to the property at odd hours. Letters bearing federal seals arrived but lacked official signatures. Whether these were acts of intimidation or coincidence remains unknown, but the psychological effect was undeniable. The family had stumbled into a situation that felt larger than any ordinary investigation. As the pressure mounted, an opportunity arose to present the sphere for public scientific evaluation under controlled conditions. The National Enquirer, eager to legitimize its standing through collaboration with credible experts, invited the Betz family to bring the object to New Orleans for testing by a panel of scientists, including astronomer Dr. J. Allen Hynek, famous for his role in the U.S. Air Force's Project Blue Book. It was the first time the sphere would be examined in a setting combining both publicity and peer review. Critical mass. The National Enquirer's scientific panel convened in New Orleans in late summer 1974. The group included physicists, engineers, and metallurgists, all instructed to test the sphere under laboratory conditions while cameras documented the process. According to reports later summarized in regional newspapers, the early tests confirmed what the Navy had already found. The sphere was composed primarily of stainless steel, likely industrial in origin. However, new measurements suggested internal irregularities, a hollow core containing smaller metallic masses. Those readings reignited speculation about its purpose. During the session, a debate emerged over whether the sphere should be drilled or cut open to examine its contents directly. Dr. James Harden, still advising the family, warned strongly against any attempt to breach the shell. He argued that if the object truly contained unstable isotopes or materials of unknown atomic weight, even minor penetration could trigger an uncontrolled reaction. He used the term critical mass, a phrase that immediately shifted the discussion from curiosity to danger. The panel deferred any invasive testing until further evaluation could ensure safety. While the deliberations continued, an unexpected phone call reached the meeting room. The message claimed that Antoinette Betz had been injured in an accident back home. Terry left the building immediately to verify the news, only to find later that it had been false. When he returned to the testing site, security personnel informed him that the sphere had been relocated for additional imaging. Over the next several days, he was denied access to the object pending further review. When the family finally recovered the sphere, something was different. The surface appeared unchanged, but its behavior was not. The once familiar hum was silent. When rolled, it moved like an inert ball bearing, no longer vibrating or adjusting direction. Tests that had once shown magnetic variation now produced flat readings. An X-ray image revealed an empty shell, completely hollow. Whatever had been inside, if anything, was gone. The Hollow Twin. After the New Orleans testing session, the Betz Sphere story faded from headlines as quickly as it had appeared. By late 1974, reporters had moved on and the family retreated into privacy. The returned object remained in their home, silent and unresponsive. Its once persistent hum had stopped entirely. The Betz family described it as empty, both in sound and in weight, claiming it no longer reacted to light, sound, or motion the way it once had. Whatever had animated it, whether physical mechanism or environmental illusion, was gone. Over the next few years, attempts to revive public or academic interest failed. Skeptics dismissed the case as a combination of magnetic irregularities, household acoustics, and human perception. Some researchers proposed that the sphere was nothing more than a component from an industrial valve assembly manufactured in the 1950s, noting its matching dimensions and composition. That explanation accounted for the material, but not the behaviors witnessed by multiple observers. With no conclusive testing data, the event remained unresolved, caught between plausible engineering and the unknown. Despite the fading media attention, the object's legend persisted in private circles. In the mid-1980s, a researcher claimed to have traced an identical steel sphere in the possession of astronomer Dr. J. Allen Hynek's estate after his death. According to that account, the Hynek family stored a metallic orb of similar size and surface markings, labeled only Florida Case, 1974. No confirmation was ever made, and the artifact's current location, if it exists, has never been verified. Whether that sphere was the original or simply another industrial relic is impossible to determine. By the early 2000s, the Betz family had largely withdrawn from public comment. Terry Betz gave occasional interviews, reiterating that he believed the original object returned to them was not the same one they had given to the Navy and later to the Inquirer panel. In every measurable way, weight, magnetism, resonance, it was different. He said the family eventually locked the hollow sphere in storage, where it remained undisturbed for decades. No official trace of it appears in any registry or collection today. The pulse beneath the silence. For nearly 50 years, the Betz Sphere remained a closed chapter, until a small but significant discovery reignited interest. In 2025, newly declassified military archives from Cold War acoustic research programs were made public. Among them were documents describing a series of prototypes known as sonic resonance spheres, experimental devices intended to convert sound vibrations into kinetic energy for autonomous navigation. Each prototype reportedly emitted a rhythmic internal signal used for frequency calibration. In the recovered files, that signal was described precisely: one pulse every 47 seconds. The pattern was identical to the one recorded by the Betz family in 1974. According to physicist Bob Lazar, who reviewed the documents, the prototypes were designed jointly by the Navy and the Air Force as part of a classified propulsion study. Several test models were lost during transportation in the mid-1960s, with serial numbers matching the size and construction of the object found on Fort George Island. If Lazar's interpretation is correct, the Betz Sphere may have been one of those lost devices, an early attempt at self-propelling surveillance technology based on sonic resonance rather than traditional fuel or magnetism. The behavior described by the family, movement in response to sound, sensitivity to sunlight, and retention of heat, aligns closely with the characteristics noted in those files. The documents further suggest that the spheres were prone to instability when exposed to sustained acoustic or solar energy, explaining their unpredictable motion and vibration. When exposed to strong electromagnetic fields, their internal components could overheat, causing temporary shutdown, a possible reason for the sudden death of the Betz object after its disappearance and return. If this connection is accurate, the implications are extraordinary. The sphere that captivated the world in 1974 was not a piece of alien technology or supernatural material. It was a relic of a Cold War engineering program decades ahead of its time, an experimental energy conversion system capable of transforming sound and motion into mechanical propulsion. And someone, recognizing what it truly was, made certain that it disappeared before the truth could reach the public. That's it for today. What did you think of this video? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.